Hello and welcome back to my channel. So I know it's been a while. I made a few videos in January, posted them, had a great, fun, cool time making them, was super excited to start my YouTube journey. And then just some like life. We'll just say it's just life. Some life things happened. I am doing okay. Just some stuff. And then that just kind of like put a dent in my, not necessarily desire to do like YouTube specifically, but just kind of desire to do like some other things. I just went through like a weird funk. It's okay. We don't need to talk about it, but yeah, it happened. It's fine. Sorry. I'm trying to like figure out lighting and shit is part of the journey. So, also super fun fact, I feel like I sound like shit and I feel like I should film this video literally like any other time, you know, like I should probably film it when I sound better. I feel okay. I think I'm just catching a cold that my coworker brought upon me. So it's cool. So I actually started filming this video, or I nearly completed filming this video over the weekend. But as I was filming, like my camera died and I was like, shoot. So then I went and charged it. And then I realized that my mics, I was using these little like lapel mics, and I realized that they had died during the filming. So I didn't have audio for like 80% of what I had filmed. So that was really disheartening. But then also when I was looking back at the footage, it was like really obnoxious. I had this issue with these mics consistently, but they made this little like ee. So that sucked. I hated that sound. Updates. I started doing makeup. How exciting. I'm 26. Gasp. I've never done makeup before. And then literally starting in February, I was like, I think I'm finally going to get into makeup. I think I'm just in my era of like being a girl and loving being a girl. I'm going to get into feminist literature, as you're going to see in this video, which is really cool. How do we feel about this angle? I might close that window because I'm just trying to figure it out. We're just trying to figure it out. Did that help? Actually, I don't think it did. Oh, fuck. Oh my God. Okay. Lighting is my nemesis. Okay. I feel like regardless of what's, you can tell that I'm like, how does she look? I think she looks okay. Fuck. Today's video as like kind of a reset, getting back into it, having something to talk about. I've read like 21 books this year, and I filmed a while ago. I filmed a video of me like going through all the books that I've read this year and what I thought of them. But I feel like that video just wasn't very good because I really haven't read a lot of good books this year. Like I read Blood Over Brighthaven at the beginning of this year, and it was a 5-star read for me, and I fucking loved it. It was so good. And I have yet to find another book, but I've also just been in a weird reading slump, and then I had some stuff happen and I was like in a weird place. And so I was looking at my Goodreads because I was like, I didn't really like how that video turned out. I felt like there was a bit of a weird vibe. Like maybe I was just coming off as like a little bit angrier than I really felt, you know? So I was like, maybe I'll just refilm it. But then I was looking through my Goodreads, and it's just like 5-star, 4-star, 2-star, 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 3-star, 2-star, 2-star, 2. Like it's like no wonder I sounded so angry in that video. I was talking about books that I didn't like for like 40 minutes. Kind of like after a while, you just get a little sad about it. So instead, I thought I would just show you the way that I've spiraled personally and talk about the books that I'm currently reading / books that I kind of plan to read. Now, I know I said early on in this channel, if you remember, I don't think it matters. This cord is an eternity long. So I hate that. So I know back at the beginning of this channel, I said I was never really, or like I didn't really want to do book hauls or anything because I don't really like talking about books that I haven't read yet. That stays super true just because for me, I do like going into books knowing little about them. So if I were to try to give you a synopsis of that book, it would just feel really weird and disingenuous. I'd probably be like, oh yeah, this was the one about like that city where some weird shit happens. And that would be all that I have to say about that book. So that stays true. I'm going to talk about so many books today that I'm like currently reading. I say currently reading because there's so fucking many of them. There's no way that I'm like literally currently reading all of these, but I'm trying desperately to kill the reading slump and find something. I feel like I just need some time. Like I just need a week where I can just sit down and know that that week is dedicated to reading and nothing else. Like I have no other responsibilities. I just get to read so that I can bust through some of these books. Anyway, we're going to get into it. I'm just going to start going. The first book that I have on this list is one that I've been reading for damn near a year because I started it last summer, maybe like really early summer, late spring. So it's been almost a year because it's March right now. But that is It by Stephen King. Initially, when I started this, super loving it. It was really cool. Stephen King's writing is really impeccable. Like the way that he writes really creepy scenes, especially from the perspective of children. He does such a wonderful job of capturing that like eerie, bad feeling as a kid that you get, which is so impressive. The reason that I stopped reading it last year, I stopped at like 260 pages in, and I stopped just because I was in a place in my life where I was like kind of stressed and kind of dealing with like a constant bad feelings. And I suffer like horrifically from nightmares. Usually they're pretty stress induced, but they are really graphic and just like really horrible. And they can definitely like sit with me for days, and it's a bad time. Fun facts about me. It's a really bad time, but I was reading this and I was just kind of in that place in my life where I was like not feeling super awesome and a little bit stressed, and I was really enjoying it. But then I started having just such horrific nightmares. And I don't know if it really had to do with anything in this book, because when I was reading it, I never felt like this book was like scaring me, but I did have concerns that maybe it was like mixing with my stress to just create a situation that was not awesome for me. So I kind of stopped reading it, but then I stopped reading it for like way too long. I'm in just such a much better place now. I'm not nearly as stressed. And I think like a couple of months after that, I was even feeling better and I wasn't stressed. We like moved into our apartment here, and life has just been so amazing and so great. I just didn't pick it up again because I got lost in other things. I started to pick this up again just because I am like in a weird reading slump, and I'm like, why don't I go back to all those other books that I was reading and then stopped reading? And this was one of them. I don't know. I don't really know, to be perfectly honest with you, that this is the best book to get me personally out of a reading slump. I started listening to the audiobook at work, and I've tried to do like a little bit of a half and half situation. I'm either a little bit past or around 450 pages into this like nearly 1,200 page book. And I feel as though I am still in the beginning of the book. It is moving really slow to a point of me almost losing interest, which is really frustrating because there is an element of like, well, I'm just kind of curious what's going on. I'm curious as to like how they've all gotten away from the clown. If you don't know what it is about, that's crazy to me. That's crazy to me if you don't know what it is about. But if you don't, essentially it's Stephen King's horror novel about a killer clown that like eats kids, and that's it. Maybe there's something deeper in here, but I'm not there yet. As of now, it's just kind of creepy clown is like going after kids, and each of the main character kids in this book so far in this like 400 and such pages, we're just kind of getting all of their like first experiences with this clown. But this book is so slow, and Stephen King sure loves to draw out. Like he loves detail in a way that I do not. Like not to this degree. I definitely appreciate a long story. Obviously, Stormlight Archive. I don't know if you can see it, but A Stormlight Archive is my favorite series of all time. So I am not afraid of big books. But something that I was thinking about, like the pacing of this to me is just incredibly off. And I've seen other people mention this in criticisms of this book, that it's just way too long. It should have been edited. So much should have been cut out. And I so strongly agree. And I was started to think about like what to me justifies like 1,000-page book. Like how do you do the pacing of something that is so large? And I thought about Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive series, and him talking about how each of his books is sort of written to be like a trilogy in each book. And I don't think they're not literally trilogies. There's not like literally complete total arcs and then you move on to the next book kind of a thing. But I do see that in the way his books ebb and flow really nicely. There is this like nice feeling every few hundred pages that you get, if that makes sense. It's a really masterful way to really pace out something that is 1,200 pages. And it, by Stephen King, is just not doing that. It's just not pacing itself very well. I mean, like I said, I'm like 450 pages into this book and I still feel like I'm in essentially the prologue of this book. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, more thoughts on it later, probably when I finish it, if I ever finish it. But as of right now, like I am just feeling really conflicted in that I think it's too long for me. It's a little too drawn out. I wish it were cut down. Some of the creepy scenes are really well done, but I am getting to the point where there's so many of them that I'm just not caring about them anymore, is kind of the gist. So moving on to Lord of Chaos by Robert Jordan. I don't think you can see it, but like way up at the top of my bookshelf. You can't because it's the shelf above Stormlight Archive, unfortunately. But I have all of the Wheel of Time books, compliments of my brother who bought them for me several years ago, all in hardcover. They're beautiful. I love them. I'm super appreciative of it. Unfortunately, I'm not loving Wheel of Time. I'm not loving Robert Jordan's writing. It is also overly detailed and overly descriptive. I've been reading Wheel of Time since 2015. Like 2 years ago, I went back and reread the first 3 books and was like, okay, I'm starting this over. I'm starting my journey over. And now I'm on book 6, but I've been on book 6 since like, I don't know, September, October, it doesn't say. Oh, I last updated it in September on my Goodreads. So it's been a really long time since I've even like picked this up, which is, that's depressing. I do want to push through Wheel of Time. If you don't know what Wheel of Time is about, essentially it's this epic fantasy series, really like quick synopsis. Really quick synopsis is just, it's this fantasy world where we follow our main characters who are from a small town and they get thrust into sort of grander, save the world kind of a story. It's like adventurous and fun sometimes. The story itself like really is good. It's just Robert Jordan's writing. It's the way that he's writing it. It's the way that he writes his characters and his world. And like, it's crazy. And what's so frustrating is I've seen other people have these same complaints. Even people who love Wheel of Time really passionately have all the same complaints. And I remember talking to my brother about it and being like, there are parts of it that are so great and I get really invested, but then like this happens and this and this and this. And he's like, yeah, I totally agree with you. None of that changes. You're super right. But I guess like the series as a whole is just super worth it. So I am going to keep pushing through. It's been so long since I've picked up Lord of Chaos and it is the 6th book in the series. So like, I don't know that I really have too much to say about it. I can say that The Dragon Reborn, which is the 3rd book in the trilogy, or in the series, not the trilogy, the 3rd book in the series is my favorite so far because Rand is not in it at all. I despise Rand. I think he is such an annoying character. And honestly, there's all of the characters annoy me greatly. Like I feel like I have gripes with all of the characters except for Moraine. I like Matt. I know a lot of people really don't like Matt, but he's like the one shining beacon of hope for me. Every time there's a Matt chapter, I'm like, yes, give me something to enjoy. But that's kind of where I'm at with that. I'm listening to them as audiobooks as well as I have the physical books. So I sometimes try to do like a little bit of a half and half. Oh God. Okay. Moving on. We have Trust of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. So as you can obviously already tell, I'm a huge Brandon Sanderson fan. He's my favorite author. I love his books. I treasure his books. I did I'm sorry, I have to kill this ant. It's going to really bother me. Okay, I'm so sorry. I had to kill that ant. I was like watching it crawl around my windowsill and I was like, no more, thank you. Okay, yeah, okay, so I'm a big Brandon Sanderson fan. I did the like year of Sanderson, which was so much fun. I got all the Secret Project books. If you don't know what that is, he's an absolutely madman and he wrote I think he actually wrote like 6 extra books, but he self-published 4 of them and he did a bunch of like boxes. It was a whole event. It happened last year. It was a good time. It was a good time for Sanderson fans, if you were one. Yeah, so Trust of the Emerald Sea is the first one, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that I didn't end up reading any of the Secret Projects, despite like being a super fan and doing the super fan thing. Last year was kind of the year of audiobooks for me. I just busted through so many audiobooks at work, and I obviously did get the audiobooks for these, but they're so beautifully designed and they have like beautiful pictures in them, so I didn't want to listen to them. I do want to read them this year. I don't really have any reason as to why I didn't get to the secret projects other than like I'm a mood reader, and you maybe can already kind of see that, but I feel like that's just the theme of this video is I'm a mood reader in a reading slump. God help me. Like, this is just such a mess. The secret projects, I'm so excited about all of them, and I am excited to get to them eventually. I'm just not there yet, which is unfortunate, but we are where we are. Tress of the Emerald Sea is his, like, it's written as if Hoyd is telling it. So it's very lyrical and whimsical, which I really, really love. And if you're unfamiliar with him, Hoyd is a reoccurring character that pops up in all of his worlds. He's always great, and he always usually comes to the characters and like tells a story, and it's just beautiful and magical every time. So this one is kind of told as if Hoyd is like telling you the story, and it's so beautifully written. I really like it, and it's also supposed to be his take on like the Princess Bride story, which I also really love Princess Bride. I went to a really small school, so we didn't have a theater, but if we did, I would have been a theater kid. Like, we didn't have drama, but I would have been a theater kid so hard. We had Missoula Children's Theater, and I did that every single year. So I was a theater kid kind of stuff. We have Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wang or Wong. Is it M.L. Wang or M.L. Wong? I'm not sure. Please let me know. So I started this. This one came out before Blood Over Brighthaven. They're not connected or anything. They're both standalone fantasies, but I read Blood Over Brighthaven first, and then I jumped into this one, and I'm finding it to be a bit slower, and I feel like I feel like it sounds like I hate slow books. I really don't. I really do like I'm capable of liking a slower story. I think sometimes when you're just a mood reader and you're in this situation where you're like feeling a little slumpy, you're just kind of, you just need something to like grab onto, you know, and just let it like take you. And yeah, and so Sword of Kaigan is a little bit slower than Blood Over Brighthaven. Yay. Okay, sorry, I'm back. I wanted to change into some comfies, get some tea, and just keep powering through this. I have no idea where we left off though. Oh, Sword of Kaigan. Yeah, okay. So a little bit slower. I feel a little like less invested in the characters, less invested in the main character. I don't love the current plight of it just being very, she used to be a warrior, but now she's a mom. And there's just kind of a lot of, you know, women can't do X and can't be X and, you know, that kind of stuff. But like, obviously in the way that eventually the story will hopefully subvert that and overcome that and that kind of a thing. But I just think like as a contrast to Blood Over Brighthaven, having read that one first, that one, it was so just constant. It wasn't like crazy fast paced. It was just that I was personally super invested in everything from the story to the characters from the get-go, whereas I don't necessarily feel that way with this one. But a lot of people love this book, and so I am excited to finish it. I'm like 260, I don't know, I keep looking down, it's not down there. I'm like 260, somewhere between 260 and 300 pages into it, and it's like 600-ish pages. So I'm like a pretty good chunk of the way in, and hopefully we'll finish it soon. I just hit a weird like roadblock with it. But yeah, that's where I'm at with that. I think the other thing about Sword of Kaigan that I'm not loving is the flashbacks. So that's also another thing that's kind of like slowly or subtly a little bit killed the pace for me. But I keep trucking. I keep going on and on and on. I like the smiley on this guy. Okay, I don't know where to put him because I have... Ooh, it's chaotic. I don't want to put it on the ground because my cats will try to drink it. Okay. Ooh, these are not the physical books that I have here sitting in this massive ass stack are not in order. That's cool. Let's fix that then. So the next book that I have that I recently tried to pick up and start is The City of Last Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I read Children of Time a couple summers ago or last summer. I don't remember which summer, but I read it somewhat recently and I liked it. I wasn't like madly in love with it, but I did really like it. And it is a concept in a book that I've kind of thought about since reading it. So it is one that I think maybe I should give a second chance just to see if I like it more upon a second read. But either way, this book is a fantasy book. And first of all, I love the cover. I just think the cover of this is absolutely freaking stunning. Even the back is so pretty. And so I'm a sucker for a good cover. And part of me wanted to buy it for the cover, but also just like city and chaos is kind of the vibe. I'm only like 50 pages in, so I really don't, as far as like the synopsis goes, I really don't have a lot to give you other than like city and chaos. So far, every chapter has been from a different character's perspective, so I don't feel super grounded in the world yet, which I think as someone who has been in such a heavy reading slump, this was not the right pick for me currently, which is so unfortunate because I am like really excited to get into it. And I do think that this could be a really good book and a really interesting world. And I do want to like keep pushing through and try really hard. But so far it's just been a little difficult to get grounded because it is a fantasy and it does very much have that fantasy vibe. You know, when you've like started out a new fantasy or sci-fi book and you feel a little bit lost because it's just this new world and new terms and you're like trying to figure it out. And then add on top of that, you have all these different perspectives, these different characters that are doing different things. And it does not feel messy. I feel like I do want to give credit where credit is due. It doesn't feel messy. It's simply just, I think, the wrong book for me at this time. But maybe as I'm kind of like trying to bust through this reading slump. So maybe as I move through this reading slump and get a little bit comfortable and like dive into fantasy again, I love fantasy and I miss it. And I think it's really the thing that's going to like get me through this reading slump. And I don't know why I've just been avoiding it so hard. I don't know. I don't know what my deal is, but anyway, that's City of Last Chances. I did, in the vein of like feeling like fantasy might bust me through or push me through. I don't know why I keep wanting to say the word bust. Dear God. Yeah, anyway, for something that could potentially push me through this reading slump, I did, like a couple of weeks ago, my coworker has been reading Mistborn upon my recommendation because she read Stormlight Archive, loved it, and I was like, you have to read his other stuff. That was her first Brandon Sanderson. Like, what a wild way to jump into Brandon Sanderson, but she did it and she loved it and it was awesome, and we talk about it a lot, and so she started reading Mistborn because I'm like, you gotta read Mistborn, like, you gotta prepare for the 5th Stormlight book. And listening to her talk about rereading Mistborn just made me be like, maybe, or reading Mistborn for the first time, I was like, maybe I should reread Mistborn. So I did pick this up. I read the first chapter. I'm literally, my bookmark is in the second chapter. Here's my own like personal struggle with rereading books. I have actually read Mistborn twice. I've read the first book twice. I've read the series as a whole once. But my thing with rereading books is it's kind of like weirdly hard for me because sometimes I just feel like there are so many other books that I need to get to. It feels like I almost feel guilty rereading. And I'd kind of like to get over that because I do love rereading books. I've read the Stormlight Archive series twice now, and the second read was just as much, if not even more fun than the first time reading it through. And I just like, I do really love rereading. It is such a fun time, but I do feel a little bit guilty. So I did start Mistborn because I was like, maybe this is just what I need. Maybe I just need to reread the Mistborn trilogy to like push me back into reading and push me back into that fantasy mindset. And I don't know, really like help me get through this reading slump. But yeah, I only read the first chapter, and you know, that's just how the cookie crumbles, I guess. If you don't know what Mistborn is about, the first book follows this really fun group of people who are attempting to sort of overthrow the Lord Ruler, who is this like evil presence, this evil overlord of their city. And it's a heist fantasy. It's so much fun. The magic system is really unique and interesting. The characters are bright and wonderful. They shine. It's just absolutely shine from the pages. It's so much fun. I love Mistborn. Everyone that I've recommended it to, everyone that I know who has read it has really loved it. So 10 out of 10. Okay, moving on. So these next two books are books that I've started literally in the last like 2 days. Let's pull them out of this massive stack that I have going on. I did not curate this pile very well. Fuck, I'm sick. Teamy. Okay, so this book I started, I think I think literally I started it last night and I am 71 pages in and I am fighting for my life to find the energy to actually read it. And that is Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore. I got this as a book of the month book. I just sort of like randomly picked it up because I was sitting in this chair actually and I was trying to read it and I was like, it was the bird watching scene. Literally just this kid at one point who's like bird watching a fountain and it turns into a creepy scene. Like it's a cool scene eventually, but there was just a part of my brain that was like, I don't have the energy to read like 3 to 5 pages of Stephen King describing bird watching to me. So I was just sitting here and I looked behind me and I was like, this seems fast and dumb and fun, maybe. So I will try to pick it up. I just already feel so exhausted by it. I don't like, here's the thing. I really think I'm going to DNF this. I feel in my bones like I'm going to DNF this. Essentially, like last night I was at like the 40 page mark and I was so shocked by how quickly things have already happened. Like we literally within the first, I think 20 or less pages already had a conflict present itself and then fix itself off screen, which was crazy to me to see. Like it was something. So, okay, I guess let's just walk through it. Let's just go through it together. So, this book starts out with our main character who has a name that I will probably never remember. What the fuck was her name? Oh my God. Is it not going to be in here? Oh, Annabelle. Oh my God. It's like the second sentence. Okay. So our main character, Annabelle, starts off in the first book. She's like this governess, or not governess. I don't know. She's like a maid or something in this like hoity-toity's house. And she's like, hey, I'm going to go to Oxford. They're letting women finally. It's in like it takes place in 1879. She's like, I'm going to go to Oxford. They're finally letting women enter Oxford. So I'm going to go there and learn and it's going to be great. And he's like, no, you can't do that. You're a woman and I need you in the house. And da 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 da. So she like finally convinces him. She doesn't tell him that she's going on a scholarship through the suffragettes. More on that in a second. But the conflict that immediately rises in this chapter and doesn't end up actually mattering at all is that he's like, okay, but if you leave, I'm gonna have to hire someone in your place and I'm gonna have to pay them £2 a month or something. And she's like, okay, I will send you the money for that. And in her head, she's like, I don't know how I'm going to get this money. Maybe I can tutor people. Maybe I can figure something out. I have no idea how to get £2. Like in her head, she just builds it up to be this really big, like that's a lot of fucking money and I don't know where I'm going to get it. And then within the next chapter, it's just like briefly aside mentioned. It's months later, by the way. The first chapter is in August and the second chapter is in October. She's already at Oxford. She's already doing things. And it's like this weird passing sentence in one of the following chapters where she's just like, I have no time because I'm tutoring people so I can send the £2 to whatever Lord whatever his name is or whatever the fuck. And I was like, oh, why did we make such a big deal out of it? Like, why did that first chapter even really exist? Why couldn't we have just started with her in Oxford? And like, maybe that's something, maybe there's an answer to that question way later in the book. It just seems like it was something that was resolved so quickly and it made that whole chapter feel so obsolete. It was insane to me. But yeah, within the first 40 chapters, we go from like August to December. For the first few chapters, I feel like every chapter is a new month. Something very small and really unimportant happens in each of these chapters. It was blowing my mind, just like the pace at which this book was moving. We already within the second chapter met our love interest. It was bananas. I think the thing that kind of initially drew me to this, and I think what draws like a lot of people to this book, is the element of like being one of the first women at Oxford, being in the suffragettes and kind of, you know, seeing what that's like through this character's eyes. But you learn so quickly that that does not matter, that the main character really doesn't give a shit about the suffragettes or like doing anything for them. She's there kind of solely for the scholarship opportunity. And within that second chapter, the suffragettes are like, you have to be a part of us to like hand out pamphlets with people. And she just doesn't really seem to be like super invested in the suffragette movement. She seems to just sort of be like, I like being at Oxford. But I don't even know what she's studying at Oxford. I think she's just like studying. I assume literature because that's what she's talked about most, is she's talked about like reading and the classics. But I don't know if that's what she's like specifically there to study. So yeah, I'm really very disinterested. Only 70 pages in. I want to DNF it. I really do. And I think the only thing that's preventing me from DNFing it is just this weird feeling of like, I should keep going and see if it gets like funny bad, you know, because sometimes that can also be something that like pushes you through a reading slump, is reading something that is just dumb fun, even if that means it's moving into the like area of being, it's bad, but I'm enjoying making fun of it, or like it's not for me, but I'm enjoying laughing at it. I know there are probably people out here who love this book, and I'm not trying to shit on them by any means. So that's a little bit where my head's at. I'm like, maybe if I just push through, I'll just start finding it really funny. But so far, I'm just finding it really annoying and really frustrating. I'm not connecting to any part of it. And I'm honestly even in a place where I'm like, I don't even know if I'm really that interested in seeing what happens. So I think this one's a DNF. It's going to be a DNF. I'm almost certainly going to DNF it. But for now, I'm like currently reading it or whatever. Oh my God. So the next one that I have, I do own the physical book, but I am seated and I don't really feel like grabbing it. Ooh, I think you can see it. Somewhere along here is Atlanta by Jennifer Saint. I just started the audiobook for it today. I snagged the audiobook from the library and I was like, I know that I really love Jennifer Saint, and I never read Atlanta. I read her two other books, Electra, and I literally can see the cover in my head. Oh, Ariadne. Electra and Ariadne. Or Ariadne, yeah. Sorry. So I read those two books, really, really liked them. I own them. I have all three of them. So she has another book coming out and I'm really excited for it. I went ahead and pre-ordered it. So yeah, so I started Atlanta by Jennifer Saint. I really like her Greek retellings. I've read both Song of Achilles and Circe by Madeline Miller, and I did not like either of them. I have a lot of feelings about them. I have a lot of feelings about historical fiction in general. I typically don't like, for reasons that maybe we can discuss another day. But like Greek retellings is very much like right up my alley. Fairy tale retellings, Greek retellings, stuff like that, super up my alley. That's like a period of time that I love. As you can actually see, that's me and my siblings at the Acropolis. I went to Greece last summer, which was really fucking cool. So yeah, that's kind of my thing. Love that kind of stuff. Love how Jennifer Saint is doing it. I think her retellings are so beautiful. They're really easy to get through because they're really short and they're just so engaging, and they just bring so much like life to these characters. And she just does such a wonderful job of like telling this story from a more feminist and more like woman-centric view without making it feel like it's someone cramming their modern day views on the past and trying to make the past characters fit a modern day mold. And so I really appreciate it. I really like them. Yeah, so they're great. And I did start that today. I will probably finish it tomorrow. It's going really well. I anticipate that I will continue to really like it. And it feels really good to be reading something that I am like super enjoying. I'm just now realizing that I like all of the books that I talked about. I think for the most part, I wasn't like super positive. Like I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm fucking loving all these books. But I want to kind of emphasize that I think it's a little bit more me than it is a lot of these books. It's just the weird mood that I'm in. It's the weird fact that I'm in a reading slump. And as a mood reader, I feel like I'm trying really hard to figure out like what kind of mood I actually am in. Like, what do I really want to read? What is going to help me out here? So those are all the books that I am currently reading. I think this video is already going to be long enough, so I'm not going to go too in depth with any of the books that I have kind of coming up, but something that I think could potentially get me out of this reading slump that I might like attempt to dive into here pretty soon, is that I feel as though recently I just am really interested in philosophy, exploring philosophy and feminism a bit more. I've been watching a ton of philosophy tube, and I just kind of hit this phase of like, I really want to read some philosophy books, and I really want to read some like more essays, some just more thought-provoking literary, maybe not even literary, but just some more thought-provoking like nonfiction thought pieces. And maybe that'll like, it almost seems counterintuitive, not counterintuitive, but it seems the opposite of what I've normally done in the past to get out of a reading slump. Usually I don't want to dive into something so dense. Usually I want to like keep it light and fluffy, but I almost feel like keeping it light and fluffy is what has kept me in this reading slump for so long. So maybe it is time for me. Maybe my brain is just saying like, feed me something dense. So stop feeding me cakes and candies. Like feed me some fucking substance. I do have several books. I went to my local bookstore and I picked up so many books on some like feminist literature. I also have Annihilation, which I've heard phenomenal things about. And I feel like a lot of people talk about it as being incredibly thought-provoking and like really interesting and just really like out there. I don't know. It sounds really good. The really, really tiny one in there, the little like slivery one, is the Communist Manifesto. Super excited about that. It's a really cool edition that I have. I got the Penguin like deluxe edition. It's really cool. I think it looks really interesting. So I'm excited to read that potentially. I'm going to keep being super paranoid that my mic is just like randomly turned off. Yeah. And so some other books that I picked up in that vein of like feminist literature is How to Think Like a Woman by Reagan Penaluna. Ooh, I hope I said that right. I'm so sorry if I butchered it. This one is kind of a memoir. She is a philosopher, modern day philosopher, super awesome. So it's kind of her memoir through the lens of her discovering feminist philosophies and feminist literature. And it starts out with this insane story of one of her professors one day coming into the classroom and being like, let us all just imagine that women actually are not as smart as men. And I think that was kind of her origin story of like, oh my God, people believe that. So I'm really excited to like keep reading it and pushing through it. And I see pushing through it like it's bad, but like, no, I think honestly, if this might be exactly what I need to read currently. Maybe that will push me through this reading slump. Next, I have Lindsay Stonebridge has We Are Free to Change the World. This is a book discussing Hannah Arendt's work. I have, I believe, On Revolution by Hannah Arendt on my Kindle. And there's another one by her that got really popular, I think after the 2016 elections, actually, that I would also like to read. But this book, I just kind of liked, I thought it would be nice to have something that kind of explained her work to me. Because sometimes I think it can be really intimidating to dive into someone's work just completely unsure of it. And it's, I'm sure that there's a level of like, maybe you should read Hannah Arendt before reading this book. But sometimes I think it's nice to have someone break it down before you dive into it. I actually had a professor teach his class that way. He taught like classics. It was this like Western lit class that I took, and it was like a 101. And he would actually give you a lecture about the story and like kind of explain it and help like walk you through it before it was actually assigned to read. And at first I was very like, oh, like, what are you doing? But then as a 101 class, I was like, oh, that's actually incredibly helpful, because now as I'm reading it, I feel like I understand it better than I would have if I would have just tried to dive into it without knowing anything. So I'm kind of hoping that I can get that same like feeling from this, is if I get this nice breakdown of it first and then go try to read some of her books, they're very large and I think very dense. Maybe I will be able to understand them a little bit better on that first read than I would otherwise. And then I have Art Monsters, Unruly Bodies in Feminist Art by Lauren Elkin. It's just all about like art and feminism and breaking from the mold of like trying to play in the same field as men, I think, and like just really taking on defining like art and what it means for us, and figuring out how women can participate in art outside of the patriarchy. I don't know if any of that made sense. I'm so sorry. Okay, yeah, this line I think says it really, really well. Explores the ways in which feminist artists have taken up the challenge of their work and how they not only react against the patriarchy, but redefine their own aesthetic aims. So I'm really excited to read this. I think it's going to be really cool. And then in terms of other like feminist literature that I might try to dive into, I also have Men Explain Things to Me by Rebecca Solnit. I heard another booktuber was recommending some feminist literature, and I was like, that's kind of the headspace I'm in right now. So what do you got? And this was one of them, and it sounded amazing. The like initial story, I believe, what the first essay like talks about is right out of the gate. She tells an anecdote about this one time that she was at this party, and she was telling this man that she writes books, and he was like, what do you write books about? And she started to tell him about her most recent one, and he started going off about like, oh, that's already out there, and just starts like mansplaining his way through this book, and it turned out it was her book that he was talking about, which is fucking hilarious. It's so funny, so good. So yeah, so I'm excited to read that. It's like a collection of essays, and I think that should be really interesting. But I guess that's just what I have for now. I have tons of other books here from the library, but we're not going to get into it because this video is already long enough, and maybe you'll see me talk about them when I actually have something to say about them. But for now, that is what I'm currently reading. That is what I'm currently trying to do. I'm trying to break out of this reading slump and this weird place that I'm in. I hope that I will see you again with another video soon. Hopefully a wrap up that consists of some of these books finished, although we are nearly at the end of March. So we'll see about that. But I hope that you have a really great rest of your day or night or morning. I will see you hopefully soon with another video. Let me know in the comments down below what you are reading, what you want to read, what you think of the books that I'm trying to read. Let me know it all. Okay, I will see you later with another video, hopefully way sooner than last time. Goodbye.